needs to be done. But please remember, no one organ can do everything. They have to work in coordination, and everyone has to perform this task. Your questions are more, as I understand, observations which need to be kept in mind for everyone to do better.
Last question. How to make the Prime Minister, accountable? What is the mechanism that could be adopted?
Well, according to our constitutional scheme, as I said, under the general law, he is liable for any crime that he commits, that's a different thing. But then, you see, any process which is long drawn to render him as a lame duck Prime Minister, is not something which is conducive to good governance, and we have adopted a parliamentary form of government. Now, according to that, if he continues to enjoy majority in the House of the People, he is entitled to continue as Prime Minister. And please remember, every error or aberration cannot be corrected only judicially or through a particular. Now here, what is provided is the political process. I will give you one recent example which would indicate. Now that S.R. Bomai case, which all of us are aware, well, I was also one of the judges there, but I gave my separate opinion and I agreed only with a part of that. I said, judicial review, yes, of a proclamation under Bill 56, but only where there are judicially manageable standards applying an objective principle. Any area of subjective determination, judicial hands off. And you certainly can't revive a dissolved assembly, just as you cannot infuse life in a dead man. Now, Bihar proved that point. When Nitish Kumar was not administered oath by the governor wrongly, it was rightly challenged in the court and rightly held that it was wrong. But by the time, because the assembly had been dissolved, by the time the occasion came to give the judgment, there were fresh elections and he was returned with much greater majority. So the petitioner also did not want the relief which he had claimed initially. Now here, if judiciary had granted that relief as against the political correction, well, that's not our constitutional scheme. So in the case of a Prime Minister, in larger interest of the country, to avoid instability, the scheme being as it is, you have to get rid of him only through the political process. Of course, for any crime punishable under the general law. As I gave that extreme example, he commits murder, certainly he will be arrested and immediately you will have another Prime Minister. But an allegation is starting an inquiry, howsoever efficient, think of the most efficient person in the world. After all, he will require some time to inquire. And what happens during that period? And here I want to share something with you which I told Krishna here myself. You see, I told him once, and that time itself, I said, I blame you more than Indira Gandhi for the emergency. He said, Verma, you are being very cruel. I said, it sounds so, but I'll give you the reason. I said, forget the merits, the appeal, the judgment was given, although I thought, it was too much to unseat a Prime Minister, although I've been a very strict judge myself, on this ground, whether 245 rupees were spent on a tambu by her or by someone else, etc., etc. But at any rate, when the appeal was filed after her election being set aside, he said, what would you have done? I said, in 5 minutes, without much ado, either I would have rejected the stay application as such or granted it without condition. Because if you reject it and refuse a stay, immediately she goes out and someone else is elected Prime Minister. No instability. If you grant a stay, then she stays, no instability. You heard the case for the whole day. So throughout the country and even outside, there was a speculation what's going to happen. So as it is, wo kursi hilne lagi. By the end of the day, you made an order which, you see, was meant for the common man, but the most uncommon man also could not understand it. You see, the order was, in effect, as I understood, you can sit in the Prime Minister's chair, but you cannot exercise that authority. And then, naturally, vested interest jumped in. Her son Sanjay Gandhi, Siddharth Shankar Ray, that eminent lawyer, and so many others. And in that baffled state, you saw what happened. That kind of thing. Now, this is, unfortunately, you see, a bad dream for us. But this is also an eye-opener which indicates what can happen in the constitutional scheme that we have if you have an uncertain Prime Minister under cloud who can't exercise. So you have to think of a medicine, a remedy which is not worse than the disease.
The judicial activism that is being visible or talked about is largely centering around Supreme Court, High Court, or the top echelons of the judiciary. The lower level judiciary as such are, I think, quite understandably part of the functioning system. The way they are functioning, I think that party to the corruption, anything that is happening, like Gujarat, there was a case where arrest warrant warrants have been given with already signed bill, you just fill in the name whoever you want to arrest. Those kind of cases are also there. Second thing is that the efficiency of judiciary is now greatly needs to be revised. It has to be managerial efficiency, it has to be efficiency of the 21st century in which Indian leadership is also expected. The structure, if you see, the judiciary structure, if you see, from the Munsal to Supreme Court, I think it's a lifetime's journey of a particular case. We cannot handle justice by tracking them down in this speed. Is there any prospect of flattening the structure? For that matter, let's say educational matters. There can be parallel or similar systems which can be decided in their level. We do not have to come to the judiciary process of the country as a whole. Forest cases or many such cases, smaller cases, they can as well be delegated to larger different areas of the judiciary system which need not have to come to the judiciary system of the country as a whole and choke the system as a whole in terms of...
Now you have so many tribunals. What is the experience of the tribunals? You have tribunals and you are seeing, and they are more sinecures for retired people, and the judiciary said it must be, the chairman must be a judge, so one of us after retirement enjoys life there as a sinecure. Now, so tribunalization itself is causing problems and ultimately they come to the court. Ultimately it's this, unless the general ethos improves, judges are not a different breed. They come from the same society. They come from the same family. So, you see, unless that work culture, the ethical values generally improve at all levels, I mean, you will have judges also from the same society. The only thing is, probably they are considered to be less worse than the others because of the traditions which continue to govern them to a great extent.
Good evening, sir. Do you think that there is a need to draw a line between the judicial activism and the executive domain?
Well, I pointed out what is legitimate and what is not. That test of juristic base. So don't take over. Compel them to perform.
I have a few questions. I am not from judiciary side. The question is that credibility of public institutions are very low. Indian public has a lot of patience, but now they are reaching the zenith of their frustration. And when you talk about accountability bill or something like that, what I understand that is already 20 years in pipeline. Lokpal bill is 44 years in pipeline. And what you're talking about, the civil society, these 5 people, actually that is just a representative. This is a frustration of people. These people will have no support if people were not frustrated and crying. They may not be with them, but they are with the issue. So that is very important. Now, talks and what we are talking about when we say about Prime Minister, present Prime Minister is not elected by people. He is a Rajya Sabha member. People are so frustrated that a corrupt politician is defeated by people, he comes back to Parliament through backdoor, Raj Sharma. And then he sit there, do nothing, because 22 years your bill and 44 years Lokpal bills. Where public to go? And as you say, vacuums is being created. So far people are not violent, but it might lead toward that side. Now the question which I want to ask with the judiciary is that cases are delays 20 years. Who is responsible for that? What credibility judiciary will have? I have a lot of respect for judiciary, and of course they are doing very good work, but people are impatient now with education and all that thing. Second thing is that judiciary give contradictory judgments. Lower court says something, higher court reverted back, or higher court says something and further revert back, and we have a lot of instances like that. And of course corruption in judiciary is also coming in public. So the belief in judiciary is also declining. So all this public institute which is supposed to serve and have a respect of people, they are losing respect of people. Then where do you go from there?
Well, actually your questions are, if I may say so with respect, repetition of many things which have already been said and answered. Now, one particular thing, that one particular Prime Minister is not elected, so on and so forth. When you make a law, you do it as a general principle to provide for all situations, not for a particular purpose, not for a particular person, or to deal with only one particular situation. Now, you see, just because the present Prime Minister is not considered to be a true representative because he is not come. Well, you see, if you want to stop that, well, move for amendment of the Constitution to say that the Prime Minister should be only a person who is a member of the Parliament, a member of the House of People or the Lok Sabha. But so long as you don't have that, you see, you can have a person like that. You see. So, and most of these other things, and by the way, that judicial accountability bill is only, it's not 20 years. 20 years back was my judgment, my dissent in Veeraswamy. This bill is for 5 years, which too also, according to me, is too long. And there is no reason why. As a matter, what I have said is, all this problem, as this gentleman has pointed out, if you see this judicial accountability bill is dealt with simultaneously along with the Lokpal bill, and both of them processed expeditiously, most of this argument will go. Then whether it should be in this legislation or that legislation, it becomes only academic. Because what is needed is an effective mechanism for enforcing accountability on the High Court and Supreme Court judges, not that it should be only in a Lokpal bill. What I said was that it is a subject more to be dealt with under this head rather than that, because then you are concentrating on the judiciary, which incidentally the constitutional scheme deals with separately, particularly because of Articles 50 and 235, which are an indication in the original constitution. So no one disputes that the judges are as accountable. If you ask me, then the judges have to be answerable according to a measure or yardstick stricter than the one which we apply for everyone else. There are so many things which may not be wrong for anyone else to do, but I would consider them very wrong to be done by any one of us. I demitted office long back, but I still think that although I am no longer holding any office, much less that of Chief Justice, but I think because I am having held that office, there are many things which I should not do today also, and I don't do them, you see. But anyone else is not obliged, a retired bureaucrat, well, he can, you see, go anywhere, where take a job. A retired High Court judge can revert to the bar and practice, you see. I cannot, because having been in the Supreme Court and Chief Justice, I cannot even indirectly do that which directly is forbidden. So, you see, so I am not one of those who says that dilute the requirement of accountability of judge. I am one who has always tried to answer to a restricted yardstick. The only thing I am saying, the form has to be different. That form has to be different so that judicial accountability remains a facet of judicial independence and it does not erode it. Because that itself is a basic feature.
We have a whole battery of very good laws in India. However, the ground reality, as they say in Goa, is that there are blatant illegalities going on. For example, illegal mining and so many other illegalities, control of traffic, bribery and corruption openly, exposure of all these things. And yet, the other aspect is that those who want to try and implement the law don't have access to the law because they can't afford it. 90% of the people cannot afford the legal fees. So given this situation, what would you say to the argument that actually our judicial system has failed? It's a big failure, blatant failure.
What is the alternative you suggest?
A better organized judicial system.
No, you see that.
So the question is, how should we organize it better? That we haven't heard really.
No, that's why I'm saying, what is your suggestion?
Well, I'm not a legal person, but what I would expect is that from a legal mind like yours, with due respect, a proper ground rules on how to improve our system. We don't want to hear about all these article this, article that. Who knows about articles? I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but we want to have a roadmap. How shall we improve the judicial situation in this country, in our state of Goa?
I said,
it is abysmal.
I said control the lawyers also, number one. Number two, you see, have an all India judicial service so that the quality of the subordinate judiciary also improves. You see, and if that improves, then the burden on the high courts and the higher judiciary would be lessened. You see, all these are already suggestions made quite some time back. So, I'm afraid if you see what efforts have been suggested, you will get an answer to all your questions.
Well, I think we can continue to hear him whole line through, but I think we should call it a day now. And it's been a really very enlightening interaction with him and also his speech. I would sincerely, actually really from the bottom of my heart like to thank him, because when I invited him, he did not even take 1 minute to say yes. He just said yes, of course I will come. Thank you very much.